Well, Dunfanaghy is a gorgeous little town, one-time fishing town, one-time port, and probably it's the most beautiful thing about it, I would say, is probably the beach at Killahoe, which is such a draw, and it's probably why Dunfanaghy is such a popular town, particularly for families and as well as tourists, but most of all families and children. And there are quite a lot of holiday homes here, and often those houses belong to people who have been coming to this area for generations. So there's a very long tradition of families being involved, and families who would also feel very much part of the town and be very involved in the life of the town. So that kind of gives Dunfanaghy a slightly different character perhaps so when you talk about tourists, a lot of these people don't sort of think of themselves as tourists, they think of themselves who live part of the year in Dunfanaghy, and it's like a second home more than a holiday destination. Now, a lot of people would say that one of the most beautiful parts of the area is Horn Head, which is actually totally majestic, and people talk about the cliffs of Moher and people talk about Slieve League, but actually some people would say that the cliffs of Horn Head are actually higher and bigger and more amazing than any of those, but not so well known. And there's a lovely scenic drive where you can drive around. You can drive around the area, and you can look at there's loads of wild birds, seabirds nesting in the rocks and things. But also, just when you come around the corner and you come back towards Dunfanaghy, it can look like you're looking down on a Greek island when the sea is so blue and the sky is blue and the sea is that kind of beautiful aqua colour. And there's no more beautiful sight really than that. So Dunfanaghy certainly saw very hard times in the 19th century, and the workhouse here is a definite example of that, and it stands as a reminder that things have not always been so easy. But coming on into more modern times, Dunfanaghy has actually reinvented itself a number of times, because it's gone from being quite a popular port where big ships would have come in to unload coal, and they would have brought wood, would have been coming in from Norway, and stuff from Derry and stuff from England, and boats would have set off from here to the Clyde. And then what happened here was all about sand. In the First World War, one of the really problematic things that happened is on the First World War, they cut the bent or the marram grass, they cut it off the sand dunes out here on the way over to Horn Head, and they cut it so extensively, and it was being sent for fodder for the First World War. And that was actually organised through, I think, probably the landlord of Horn Head. And that was being sent away, and gradually the surface of the sand dunes was getting eroded and eroded until eventually heavy winds blew so much sand that it blew back across, and it covered the bridge at Horn Head, and it covered the way in, so that eventually now in the 1930s then developed a place that we call the New Lake, and that's now a very important wildfowl reserve. And but it was a disaster at the time because it filled in the harbour, and from then on big boats have not been able to come in to Dunfanaghy harbour, because sometimes people come and they look at the harbour and they think, how could that have been an important port? But it's because it's all silted up. And as you go across the bridge to Horn Head, you can see that the bridge has 9 or 12 arches, but in fact the water that comes through now is coming through only one of those arches. There's such a small trickle of water coming through, and that made a huge change to the town. And because of that, I think probably Dunfanaghy has moved more into being a holiday destination, and it's now sort of reinvented itself as very popular, very successful, and it has also managed to create a number of new festivals. There's, for example, there's the Jazz and Blue Festival, which has been getting bigger and bigger year on year, and has become a really popular event in the calendar of Dunfanaghy.